10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another Freethought in Florida. Freethought in Florida is a production of the Atheist community of Polk County, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. My name is Sarah Ray, and I am your host for this episode. I'm one of the directors of the ACPC, and this is Wednesday, September 16th, 2020. Quick reminder, you can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/polkatheists. It's a great way to support the ongoing work of the atheist community of Polk County and the production of this program. We'd love to expand it and bring on some guest co-hosts from time to time and do some more interviews, and your support would be greatly appreciated. And if you can't do that financially, then of course leave a great review and share out these episodes to anybody you think might appreciate them. Now, today I am joined by one of the directors of the Central Florida Freethought community. It's my friend Joseph Richardson. Joseph, welcome to the show. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Always glad to be here.
Welcome back to the show, I should say, I guess. You're a repeat guest. So today I thought we'd talk about invocations again, because they have, again, sort of come to the forefront, particularly around here. And we want to talk about specifically the situation that happened in Lake Wales with our organization and my invocation there. But I thought first maybe we could just go back again. Again, we tend to have to keep having this conversation because I know we've talked about it before, but we have a new audience each time we do this. So take us back a little bit and just let's talk a little bit about invocations in government in general, and the legal precedent that has sort of led us to where we are now, and what it looks like now.
Sure. Well, depending on how far you want to go back, there is there is discussion that goes back to now I'm going to forget his name. The guy from Nebraska, Ernie. I can't remember. But he had a lawsuit back then about invocations in the state legislature. At that time, that kind of started this whole thing. And that case, eventually they decided it was okay for them to do the invocations. And it's kept going since then. So now there's a difference between state legislatures and municipal meetings, like we have with city and county and things like that. But that's been the more recent trend. And it turns out that 6 years ago, there was a case that reached the Supreme Court called Greece versus Galloway, in which the town of Greece was being sued for the invocations that they were doing, the claim was that they weren't allowing anybody or not diverse enough, whatever it was. And the Supreme Court decided, bottom line was, it's okay for municipalities to do invocations, but they have to be open to everyone, which seemed like a reasonable compromise. The application of that in the last 6 years has been a little tricky, and we've got a number of municipalities that are flirting with all kinds of things to try and basically to try and keep Christian invocations as the primary or even the only type of invocations that they allow in their meetings. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So I got involved with the invocation issue about the time that Greece versus Galloway came out. And I have been trying in my own city of Winter Garden to do an invocation ever since then. I think it was 9 days after the Supreme Court decision came out, I sent an email to the city and said, hey, I'd like to do an invocation. And it's been a fight ever since. I have not yet done an invocation in Winter Garden, even though I have done invocations in probably a dozen other municipalities in the area, including Orange County, Polk County, and maybe one or two other counties, but a number of cities as well.
Well, and you, let me jump in here.
Yeah.
You personally, but then also the Central Florida Freethought community, post Greece, has done. You tell me how many hundreds of these now? Like
I
a bunch.
I think we're getting close to 100.
Yeah.
If we're not there already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd have to look back. We try to list them on our website. You can go there and you can see them all. We've got videos for a lot of them. We've got transcriptions for them, and I think it needs some updating. But there are quite a few there, and you're certainly welcome to go look at them.
Yeah. So where does that? I guess let's gear change a little bit towards Lake Wales. So the challenges that you had in Winter Garden, breeze through sort of what the different iterations have been, like
Yes.
all of the different attempts that they've tried to
Sure.
not make it better, I guess.
So the first time they've changed their invocation policy 3 times since Greece versus Galloway came out. And the first time was, I won't go into it, but I got kicked out of the meeting in which for not standing for the pledge, and that created a news cycle on this. And they basically immediately said, yeah, okay, you can sit for the pledge, and for now we're going to go to a moment of silence. And they got rid of invocations, and that went on for, I don't know, 6 months or a year. And then they decided, you know what, we really do like invocations, and we're going to try and bring them back in the form of Greece versus Galloway, where we let anybody get their name on a list. However, the commissioners get to take turns choosing who from that list will get to do the invocation. And there weren't any serious restrictions about who they could pick. So they could pick who they wanted, ignore who they didn't want. And even though I was on the list, in fact, I was the very first person on the list, I never got picked in the time that invocation policy was in effect. And then it went on for a while. I started a petition to gather signatures, encouraging the commission to change the invocation policy to something more fair. And at the time that I presented that, they also presented their third iteration of the invocation policy, which said, you know what, forget the list. We're going to go back to letting the commissioners do the prayers with the option of submitting, giving up their turn to allow the mayor to do it anyway. So basically, ever since then, the mayor has done, everybody cedes their seed. That's the word I was looking for. Everybody cedes their turn to the mayor, and he does 100% Christian prayers. The only exception was that immediately after they instituted that policy, I did get a call from one of the commissioners who said, hey, if you write me a secular invocation, I'll read it. And he did.
Wow.
And I really appreciated that, but it hasn't continued. So that's where we are today.
Right.
With Winter Garden.
With Winter Garden, right. But now since then, since Greece, there have been other cases that have come along and in somewhat a more, I guess, regional effect, modified what that looks like. And I'm thinking of Williamson Brevard. Right. So talk a little bit about that case too, because I know that touches close to home with you all.
Yeah, that was another one that that Central Florida Freethought community took on early on, and try to keep it. I'll try to keep it short. Brevard basically, we asked to do an invocation there, and Brevard said no. And then there were 2 other organizations that also asked to do invocations, and Brevard said no to all of those. And this was before I think they had a formal invocation policy. And so at that point, they decided, after they said no to everybody, they decided to institute a formal policy, which basically excluded, I think I'm remembering this right, they basically excluded non-theists, and it made it so that the commissioners would basically choose who they wanted, and all the commissioners wanted some form of theist, probably monotheist, probably Judeo-Christian type of invocation. And they got sued for it with the Central Florida Freethought community and some other organizations and individuals who live in Brevard County, and they lost. They appealed, they lost again, and they stopped there. And at some point they started just doing a moment of silence, and I think that's what they've continued, and that's what they're planning on continuing, as far as I know. So that was that was pretty clear cut. I mean, they took depositions of the commissioners who said things like, if I don't know what a Rastafarian believes, so I probably wouldn't do it.
Wow.
No analysis whatsoever, no curiosity, no openness to equality, nothing like that. Just no, only Jews and Christians and something like that. So
Right. And that's a theme that we will see come back here soon. This idea of, well, you elected the 5 or 7 or 9 or however many of us that there are, and this is what we all want. So who are you to care?
Right.
Which is, I'm sorry, if you're supposed to be representative of a constituency, and not yourself, well, holy shit, like. That just, to me, it just flies in the face of the idea of being willing to listen to the constituency and the people that you represent. And it's nope, it's what I want. You elected me, so I get to do what I want. That's nuts.
It is. It's absolutely nuts. There's no recognition there of equal rights, of religious freedom, of anything like that. It's just, and in fact, this is a problem in a lot of areas, that there's this idea, because of the type of democracy that we live in, a lot of people have this idea of majority rules.
Sure.
And it's not just majority rules when it comes to electing who's representing you, but majority rules when it comes to making the actual rules. And as I've said many times, I got it from Andrew Seidel. The point of the Constitution and the point of the Bill of Rights is to protect the minority from the tyranny of the majority. And just because the majority wants something doesn't mean it's okay.
Right. I mean, if you look at the Civil Rights Act of 1964, this is an act that was expressly created to protect minority groups from the idea. Well, think about a disability community, right? Hey, most of the people in this country can go upstairs, so why do we need ramps? Are you kidding me? No.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we do is create these laws to protect minorities and to make the playing field a little more equal.
Right.
Well, let's talk about Lake Wales then. I'll give you my backstory. So there was a Lake Wales resident who reached out to me and said, hey, I saw the invocation that you gave at the Polk County Commission in May, and really liked that. Would you be interested in doing something similar here in Lake Wales? And I said, sure, if that's, I don't know what their policy is, but I'll find out. And so I wrote to the city clerk, the city manager first, and asked, hey, I don't know what your policy is, but if you have such an opening, I and of my organization, we would be interested in being a part of your invocation practice. He forwarded that to the city clerk, who responded. Later, we learned, after getting some direction from the city attorney, she responded and said, nope, we actually don't really have any kind of policy. Typically, we have Reverend Dr. Moyer come in and do all of the invocations, except when he's not able to. And then when he's not able to, either the mayor does, or unless someone else asks. And so we back and forth a couple of times, settled on a date, and scheduled the invocation. Here we come, right? And my point in this was not to be divisive, was not to go in and start up a firestorm. The point was to go and be representative of someone in the community who is a non-theist. And really that was it. And beyond that, I expected there to be an educational opportunity, and there certainly was. So a few days before the invocation, a local news outlet, the lakewalesnews.net, published an article about this upcoming secular atheist invocation with quotes from two of the commissioners who said that they were going to probably leave the room. One who said that they were going to put a Bible on the dais in protest, and that Commissioners Curtis Gibson and Goldstein, and they both did indeed walk out right before I spoke. Right. And so I only mention that because later it comes up that there was a feeling amongst the board that they felt that they had been put into this situation, like they had been forced into this situation, which I find interesting because I think, had you, first of all, you let me speak, you let me come and do the invocation, so you did not violate my rights. And had you just done that and not made a media storm out of it, I'll see you next year. And that would have been it. Like, I don't have any interest in coming once a month. Like, you're not going to see me a ton, but I would like to be representative of the non-believers in your community. And so if that means I come once a year, or this member of the community wants to come and give an invocation, then it should be to them to do so. And so, anyway, I thought that was a unique, not unique, an interesting reaction that they sort of felt pressured into this position. But before we get too deep, let me play this scary, terrifying invocation for you all so that you can hear just exactly what transpired that night. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and City staff for your service to the community and for the opportunity to provide reflection and an inspirational start to your meeting. I stand before you tonight by request of citizens of Lake Wales who are also members of the atheist community of Polk County. I am honored to represent them and all your atheist, agnostic, humanist, and other non-religious constituents. We find ourselves once again in a period of uncertainty and discord, and it is during these times especially that we look to our leaders for guidance, for assurance, for hope. Consider the vast collective knowledge and leadership that comes together in this all-important task of self-governance, of, by, and for the people. The brilliance in the design of self-governance, to me, is profound yet simple. We, the people, far more alike than different, bring our many unique talents and skills together for the good of all. And so tonight I call for peace and understanding. Yes, I'm an atheist. I'm white. I'm a parent. I'm originally from Illinois. I'm a transgender woman. We are all different in many ways. I fear if we have prejudged each other already upon these differences and others, I fear we have lost before we ever began. Instead, may we seek out that which we have in common and recognize that much of what makes us different separately makes us stronger together. This is the foundation upon which we can build a better tomorrow together. So let us all meet there tonight, together, at that foundation of our shared humanness, and approach these important responsibilities with reason and compassion as we work together to build a better future for all the citizens of Lake Wales. In service, I thank you. So there you go. Again, the idea, a lot of people don't know, what is a secular invocation, or what do the the scary atheists. What do we invoke if we don't pray? If we don't believe in a God? And so there is one of the educational components to this activity, and that's to say that, look, we all, by the very fact of being human, have value and worth, and it is on those skills and talents that we were hopefully brought into these positions. And so it's a fluffy, flowery way to say, welcome to work. Is everybody clocked in? Yes. All right, let's go to work. Let's do the job that you were brought here to do. And so that was it. That was the scary invocation. Oh, sorry, Joseph. Hold on. Go ahead.
Try again?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, if I could just clarify one or 2 points,
please,
legal points about this. There's always, when something like this comes up, there's always people who say, how could atheists give an invocation because they don't believe anything? Well, one thing that the Supreme Court said in Greece versus Galloway was they were explicit about the fact that secular invocations are invocations. They fall under what the Supreme Court considered to be invocations. They're not anything unusual, and just because you don't believe in a supernatural deity of any kind, doesn't mean that you can't give an invocation. And the bigger issue beyond that, in other cases, the courts have recognized atheism, agnosticism, humanism as religions with respect to the law. So anything that's going to apply to religion as a matter of equal treatment, or anything like that, religious freedom, applies to atheists, agnostics, humanists, etc., as well as Christians, Jews, etc. So I'm just saying that the law has recognized that secular invocations are entirely within the purview of invocations, and so we're good to go there.
Right. So we did, and the 2 commissioners who said they would walk out did, and Mr. Goldstein left a Bible on the dais, and that sort of started this whole situation in Lake Wales that brought us back to the meeting several times. They decided after my invocation, that maybe they really probably should have a formal policy regarding invocations, and so they set about to do that. And this is a point that I made, I tried to make clear a couple of times. The question that they set upon to address was, how can we continue having what they thought they had an official city chaplain, is what they thought they had in Dr. Moyer. So how can we make that the policy and you still have it hold up in court? Was really the pathway they went down, rather than what should an invocation policy look like. It was, how can we keep it the way we like it, the way we've been doing it, and hopefully make it hold up if it were to be challenged legally. And that frustrated me too. I had really hoped that more of them would have considered that broader question, but didn't go that way.
Yeah. It was. I could, maybe I'll get into it in a minute, but their reactions were very similar to reactions that I've seen. There's like 3 different kinds of. I was thinking about it a little while ago, and there's like 3 different kinds of reactions, and they displayed them all. So interesting.
So then that was their first effort, was to let's declare Reverend Moyer our official chaplain, and then the question became, and then what, right? And then what's the next step? Is it then, if he's not there, the mayor gives the invocation or asks one of the commissioners to, and that was sort of looked through the legal history as maybe we shouldn't do that. And then they started looking at, well, maybe we do have a list, and what would that list look like, and who could be on it, and One of the other things that they very clearly set out about in the beginning was there is a dislike for outsiders in the city of Lake Wales, and many times we heard, what's a person from Haines City wanting to come down here and pray to nothing for? Commissioner Howell said that more than once. Despite the fact that, again, I made clear several times that our organization is a county-wide organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit Florida corporation that we have members in every city in the county, and so that should be enough reason. So that was one of the things that they restricted to was the we want it to be somebody with an established presence in Lake Wales.
Yeah.
What am I missing? I feel like there was just so much that happened in all of those changes.
Well, they went from a kind of vague geographic Lake Wales / Polk County area to
Right.
I think the zip codes, right?
Yeah.
There's 3 zip codes that cover Lake Wales, and so they're kind of trying to geographically restrict it to those. Oh, the funny thing was, at one point when they were talking about just maybe having Lake Wales residents only, we determined that Dr. Moyer, who they want to be their chaplain, actually lives outside the city limits. And
Yeah.
so it didn't fall out that way. So that wasn't an issue that came up, but it would have been funny.
The other qualifier that they ended up putting in was, and so Charlene Bennett, shout out to Charlene, love you, girl. Hadn't met her prior to that night at that last meeting with the vote. I'd seen her speak at other meetings, but I hadn't had a conversation with her up to that point. And she's a Lake Wales resident who spoke during public comment. And one of the things that they did end up putting in as a qualifier is language that specifically says clergy / religious leader.
Right.
Within the 3 zip codes of Lake Wales was another one of those things. And so then if you watch, and we've got it up on our YouTube, if you watch back the commissioner's comments during the vote, Curtis Gibson it didn't seem to be clear on whether that would include or exclude Miss Bennett, and because she doesn't belong to an organization, and there are no, in the city of Lake Wales, there are no established non-religious religious organizations, unless you count us. And we didn't get an answer on that as to whether or not the atheist community of Polk County counts, because we operate there. And I have good arguments as to why we should, but that is yet to be seen whether that will be considered or not. But yeah, that was the other one, clergy / religious leader.
Yeah, there seemed to be a general feeling that they wanted to say, yes, anybody can get on the list, especially Lake Wales residents,
Right.
But anybody in the area could get on the list. However, that wasn't the text of the ordinance
Right.
or the resolution. Yeah. It said, as you mentioned, clergy or religious leader, and that excludes most people in Lake Wales. So when the issue was brought up specifically about Charlene Bennett and whether she could get on the list, there seemed to be general agreement that yes, she could get on the list. But from my reading, it violates the resolution.
Agreed. That's how I read it too, for sure.
Yeah.
Another thing. So then they had some discussion. I really thought. So Commissioner Goldstein was ultimately a vote in favor of the resolution, and I thought he might have. I thought he might have voted it down. He was the one I was unclear on. Other Commissioner Gibson, Robin Gibson, former attorney, has done cases that touch on some of these constitutional topics. He seemed to, when it came down to vote time and he had his comments to say before the vote, he seemed to get the legality of it. and while he may not have agreed with it personally, understood that there is a constitutionality question that was pretty clearly answered. So there it went. It was voted down, or I'm sorry, voted. It was passed. The resolution passed.
Right.
And so now we'll see what that looks like in practice, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm going to back up to
Please.
For a moment to the reactions that the commissioners had. I mentioned that there were 3 categories of reactions that that I kind of have in my mind, and how they were displayed from the commissioners. All 3 of those were displayed from the commissioners in that meeting. And the first is, if somebody gets it, like Deputy Mayor Gibson, they get it. And they're going to vote against it, and it's pretty clear they understand. And that's one reaction we get. Second reaction that we get is the other Commissioner Gibson, who is vocal about wanting to do exactly what he wants to do. And he was very clear. He wanted Dr. Moyer as the chaplain. He wanted to keep the invocations, and it didn't matter what the constitutional questions were. It didn't matter anything else. So those are the 2 extremes. And then there's everybody else in the middle, who they may talk about it a little bit, like Commissioner Goldstein did, but more often they're going to not say anything, which was what the mayor and Commissioner Howell did.
Yeah.
They basically said nothing, and that they wanted the same thing that Commissioner Gibson wanted. But they also know in the back of their minds that this is a problem, a potential problem. And so that's why they don't say anything. So that's, and I've seen that in multiple commissions. I've seen it here in Winter Garden, and it's just very interesting, to watch it repeat itself in all of these places.
Yeah.
So
that's the educational component of going in, and there's going to be some misconceptions and misunderstandings, and one of the things that I thought was interesting to note, and I think we both reacted on this very similarly, was and I think it was Commissioner Goldstein that said, look, maybe I would prefer a moment of silence. Like, if it's going to cause problems, let's just whatever. But I'll go with the flow and do whatever it is you guys want to do. That's the way I'll do it, and we'll be all right. Which is not if it wasn't Goldstein, I apologize. My memory is a little lost on all those meetings now, but still, like, that's not being a leader.
It's not what you were elected to do.
No.
It's to follow everybody else.
Exactly. So there was one other thing that I wanted to go back to. Let's see if I can remember it now. Oh, yes. So midstream of this, we have the first meeting. I give the invocation. They decide at the next work session, we're going to talk about secular invocations or what our policy looks like, and how do we basically, how do we make them religious, and have our guy. And then we'll vote on that at the next city council or city commission meeting. This tells you where I'm from geographically, because we don't have city commissions, we have city councils. Anyway, so at the nth hour to that meeting, the Freedom from Religion Foundation sends an email, sends a letter to the city attorney and the commissioners, or to the city attorney, I guess. And then I don't know, there was a lot of question about how the flow of information works in that commission. But anyway, so the FFRF, and anybody who's ever done anything with the FFRF knows that this is how the process works. And this is true of the American Humanist Association, and this is true of American Atheists, and this is true of Americans United. This is true of all of these groups that respond to these concerns. The very first thing they will do is write a letter educating the people who will be making the decision as to what the law says. And that's what they did. They said, hey, looked over your proposal here, and we have some constitutional concerns. Here's the case law that sort of references all of these things and just wants you to be aware of them. And that was very much as an outsider coming into their chambers. That was seen as an attack, as they're threatening us with a lawsuit, with litigation, which is not at all what any common plain reading of that letter would not lead you to this is a threat, right? But that's how it was taken.
Yeah, in fact, it's not really clear if it's not really clear to me if any of the commissioners actually read any of the documents that were part of this whole stream of action. It's not clear to me that anybody read the resolution that they finally passed. It's not clear that anybody read the letter from FFRF. It's not. I wrote 2 letters myself to the commissioners, and it's not clear to me that they read either of those letters either, because nobody addressed any of the issues, certainly any of the major issues that I discussed in my letters. And when if you were to read the FFRF letter, and you certainly can because it's public record now in Lake Wales, you would see that there is no mention whatsoever of any kind of lawsuit or anything like that. And the city attorney himself framed it the first time when he talked about it in that first meeting, he framed it as FFRF saying, "We're watching you."
Yeah, and, right.
It was crazy. It was crazy. But
the other thing you just said there, that the feeling that nobody really knew what they were voting on, that they hadn't read the resolution. At times, I got the feeling that the city attorney himself had no idea what the resolution actually said.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I say that because of that conversation during the vote, or before the vote, where they were talking about Mrs. Bennett and whether she would be qualified under the language of this policy to give an invocation or not. And he seemed to think, well, same thing, like, oh, yeah, if you're part of a group and you're in the zip code, that's fine. She says, but I'm not part of a religious group. This says religious group. This says clergy. This says religious leader.
That's right.
Just wow.
It was unusual. Yeah.
Indeed. So, final thoughts. Any last words on Lake Wales, and then we'll move on.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
We'll see what happens. I think I would expect them to somebody to try to get on the list and see what happens there, and whether they ever actually choose them or not. I would. I don't know. Yeah. It's so hard. I would complain more about the fact that they chose a chaplain for the city, because I consider that to be an endorsement of one religion over the other by the city, except for the fact that it appears they already have chaplains for the police and for the fire department. And my argument may be right, but it's going to go nowhere with them, because they're like, well, we've already got chaplains everywhere.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and that was there is another advocacy organization person that I heard from, and that was their concern too. It was, all of this other stuff, like the idea of how do we pick from the list, or who gets on the list, or because there was an Atheist of Florida versus City of Lakeland case. Right. That centered very much around how the list was curated and who could be on it and that sort of thing. Right. And so that was one of the questions too. If we're limiting it to clergy and religious leaders in the zip codes, and there are no mosques or synagogues or Buddhist temples or humanist center or anything, right? It's all Christian churches. Then you're still effectively limiting this speech to Christian, the Christian viewpoint.
Yeah.
So, and their concern was like you just mentioned, much more with why are we having a chaplain? That's I think that's the bigger issue. But yeah. So we'll see. You're right. We'll see where that goes. No intended plans or anything that I can share with anybody. But I will add, if you are interested in doing secular invocations for the atheist community of Polk County, get in touch and we'll discuss that with you. There's not a real formal screening process, but we do want to make sure that you're going to represent the organization and non-theism well. So there's that. But on that note, I do want to share with you the next clip that I have is from the city of Davenport. So shortly after, that was the same week or the next week? Shortly after Lake Wales passed their resolution, which effectively limits invocation speech to Christians, one of the members of the atheist community of Polk County gave a secular invocation in the city of Davenport. And so let me play that one for you real quick, and then we'll come back and discuss Davenport.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Please stand for the invocation. I've lived here in Davenport for 8 years now, and in all that time I've come to know us as a united community, the same kind of united that brought this nation together 19 years ago on September 11th, 2001. Tomorrow is a day of remembrance for those tragically lost on 9/11, a reminder of the importance of looking past our differences and the importance of unity, especially in times as challenging as we have today. We come to this meeting from different walks of life with an array of views, beliefs, religions, languages, cultures, even divisions. But we stand united in desiring good governance and a future for Davenport that's inclusive of all of our diverse populations. Because of that unity, I'm allowed the right to address this body with the dignity and the respect that should be accorded to every human being. History teaches us that unity is strength and cautions us to overcome our differences in the quest for common goals, and to strive with all of our combined strength to reach those goals, for the path to true unity belongs to everyone. I thank you for your commitment to religious equality by allowing the atheist community of Polk County, through me, to represent Davenport's non-theist. And to those who stood for this invocation, I thank you for respecting my right to religious freedom. With this invocation, we stand united to continue moving Davenport forward. So be it, and amen.
Thank you, Darlene.
So that was Darlene Zienwick, and she did just an absolutely amazing job. So for those of you who are considering doing something like this, those were all Darlene's words. She wrote that herself. We provided some resources that you're welcome to, look through and help write your own invocation. Or we're happy to, if writing isn't your thing and you're interested in just getting up and reading a thing, we'll help you write it, right? Like, if this is something that you're interested in, definitely let us know. And I'll speak for Joseph too, to the point of, if you're in the Orlando area, get involved with the Central Florida Freethought community, and if this is something that you're interested in, you can chat with them as well. Darlene, I think here's one of the differences that I notice when I think about our time in Lake Wales and our time in Davenport, and the big thing is, so Darlene, being the resident of Davenport, right, has held roles that worked with the city closely. The commissioners know her, right? It's not the scary outsider coming in. So there was a different tone just to start with, right? Because she already had that pre-existing relationship with a lot of them. But also, this is to say, after Williamson v. Brevard came down, the Davenport city attorney crafted a resolution and brought it to the commission and said, hey guys, here's the thing that happened. You should probably be aware of. I went ahead and did the duty of writing up a possible resolution that I want you all to look over and see how you feel about it. But based on this ruling, I think we need to get a policy in place and do something, solid here. And a lot of that information came from Darlene going to those meetings where it was discussed and voted on, but also from Brandon Neild, who's a outgoing commissioner. His replacement was sworn in that night. Interestingly enough, is a local preacher who runs the Davenport Christian School, I think it's called. But I digress. So that's that's what Davenport did, and they came back and their policy said, I'll pull it up and read it, but essentially it says, if you'd like to give an invocation before the Davenport City Commission meeting, you fill out this very simple 3 or 4 field form, and the city clerk will be in contact to schedule you. Period. The end. There's no you have to be associated with a nonprofit. There's no you have to be a religious leader. There's no you have to be a Davenport citizen. Yeah. If you would like to come and present an invocation before this governing body, fill out this form.
I'm sure. I mean, when I read that, I was kind of shocked at the lack of geographic restrictions in that policy. It was just, it's wide open. And I'm sure that if Davenport suddenly got a flood of people from North Florida, Georgia, who wanted to do invocations in Davenport, that they'd probably modify that. I mean, that's not the point of doing invocations either.
Right.
I mean, we certainly encourage people who are residents or nearby or somehow involved with the city to do this. And if I can go a little bit farther with this, and going back to Lake Wales, one of the things that I suggested in my letter, I suggested a policy for them. And the policy was to allow any resident of Lake Wales or a designated representative of a resident of Lake Wales to be on the list. And that includes all of your citizens. Yep. Because some people don't like speaking in public, but they might want to be represented in terms of the invocation. And so they might want their religious leader or their friend even, or whoever it is, to do it for them if they agree. And so I think that's Davenport didn't restrict it to that. They still left it kind of wide open. But in my opinion, if you wanted to keep it to encompass your residents, that would do it.
Yeah. I mean, again, the general consensus, I think, amongst those of us who are in this sort of field, in this type of activism, interested in these things, is, and because this is a question that I get from time to time too, well, why the hell do you even care? Why do you want to be involved in all of this? And I will admit that prior to recently, I didn't. I was one of those people that was like, commission meetings, who cares, right? Like, this is what I want to spend my activist time on, right? And I had that feeling. And then I went to Lake Wales, and I was, that changed me. That there I recognized that if not for someone of us, then it will continue to be 100 or very closely to 100% Christian or monotheist prayer every single time at every single meeting, and nobody will question it. Nobody will think anything about it. That there's got to be someone who's willing to stand up at least once in a while and say, hey, this is not right. We shouldn't be doing this. And so now I'm in. But also with the idea that, like, the goal, right? My preference, if there were to be an outcome that I'm looking for, it's let's not do invocations at all, right? I kind of flippantly said that at the beginning, but like, I go to work every day, and I go in and I pick up my radio and I forward the phone to me, and I go to work. And there's not a chaplain that comes in and says some special words, and there's not any kind of invocation or prayer. And it's silly to me. It's oldie timesy to me that we still do that in governmental proceedings at all. So that would be my preference. Let's just stop doing them. But my meat in the middle is we either stop doing them or they're open to everyone. And if we're not going to agree on either of those, let's just change it to a moment of silence. If you're a believing person, feel free to silently pray, as the Bible says that you should to yourself. Right. Feel free to pray to whomever, however you'd like. You're welcome to, that time for yourself, and I will use it to reflect on, maybe one of the agenda items that we're here to consider tonight that I'm interested in, or whatever, right? So I don't know. That's kind of where I fall. And I think, without speaking for anyone else, I think we all sort of, I think there's kind of a consensus agreement on that. Would you say?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is with respect to, when people say, why do you even care about stuff like this? It's such a, let's say, small infraction,
Mhm.
And I think the response to that is twofold. One is the old saying about the price of liberty, which is the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. You always have to be watching and to be fighting for your freedom. And the other is one of the most motivational quotes I have ever seen for myself from Christopher Hitchens, which is, never be a spectator of unfairness or stupidity. The grave will provide plenty of time for silence.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Um, so where, I don't know, where does that leave us then? I guess that the maybe I would leave us with just that call to action, that if this is something that you are interested in doing yourself, if you would be willing to, and again, you don't have to, if you're not a writer, that's fine. We can help you with that. But if you're interested and willing to get up and give a short invocation, we can help you do that. And I would also say too, maybe there's a small discussion here before we leave about, again, sort of that, what is the intent? What is the tone that we're trying to set? That's something that I have had to discuss on several occasions, where the history of atheist activism in Polk County is searchable on Google, and if you're interested in doing it, go for it. That there were things that had been done that I might not have chosen to do if I were in that position, and wasn't here. I don't know, right? But in our defining documents as an organization, in our mission and vision, we clearly set out some of those the goals that we have for ourselves, and it's to correct the misconceptions and the perceptions that people have about atheists, right? That's part of why we claimed the word atheist in naming our organization, is there's a lot of stigma out there against us. And so do you change people's minds about who we are by going out there and acting like they expect you to? Screaming during prayers at a meeting, getting kicked out of meetings for behavior unbecoming, intentionally causing that scene, or do you catch more flies with honey, or whatever that saying is. And so I tend to, as an individual and as a leader, I tend to go that way. Again, the idea that Darlene had an existing relationship with the folks in Davenport, we'd love to have existing relationships with various local governmental organizations, so that when we do come in, it's not a strange bunch of people who you don't know what my agenda is, and you assume that I have an agenda, and there's a negative perception about atheists, where if we've worked together on other things, maybe first is a thing to consider, so that then when those other issues come up, we do know each other. One of those conversations that we've had is around, eventually in this county, we are going to have the comprehensive sex ed conversation with our county school board. And I won't go into the weeds on that, but the idea is that if we are adversarial with the school board now, and then we go in and say, hey, well, here's another thing that we should probably address, the odds of success are higher if we've built a positive relationship with them first, working on things where we agree. And so that just, I don't know, that gives you a little bit of kind of my background on where I come from when I'm considering these things, and how we put ourselves out there. Any thoughts on that?
I agree with you totally. cannot guarantee that my actions express that agreement. I especially when it comes to making public comments, I am perhaps more blunt than is warranted, or maybe not warranted, perhaps more blunt than is prudent, and yet I'm still trying to tone it down and to be reasonable and rational. But I think, I can easily see how Lake Wales commissioners would have reacted with defensiveness to some of the things that I say, but I can't help saying them sometimes, but I recognize that as much as possible, and I try to temper that as best I can. But yeah, I agree with the idea that, we are there to cooperate and to the invocations are from our point of view, from the Central Florida Freethought point of view, and for personally, should be one of unification. The idea is, we're working together here in this meeting for the benefit of everybody in the community, and it's a reminder, again, from my point of view, a reminder to the leaders that they need to make their decisions with empathy and compassion, and with all of their constituents in mind, including when it comes to making invocation policy, which all too often doesn't happen. But and I want to add also that during this time of COVID, Central Florida Freethought community has pulled back on the invocations that we've done, because we don't want to send people into indoor spaces with a lot of people, especially when those individuals might feel uncomfortable with that space. Yes. And so we're still sort of doing them where we can and where appropriate, but we're not asking people to make that sacrifice, the potential sacrifice of their health. Sure. To do that. And when it lets up, we will certainly be going full force again on the invocations. Yep. But that's kind of where we stand.
It's a good time to study up and maybe practice writing and you bouncing them off each other and getting some feedback and ideas. Right. I have to say, and I don't think I sent you this message when I thought of it when we were in Davenport, but I kind of looked around and I thought to myself, well, I know what kind of mask ordinance they don't have here. There were quite a few people at that city commission meeting that were not masked up.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's frustrating. And that was tied into all of this stuff in Lake Wales was the fact that the night that I gave my invocation was also a mask ordinance discussion and vote. And so there was a lot tied into that too. And then that became a budget meeting. And then there was a lot.
Yep. It's been a busy month or two for Lake Wales.
It sure has. And listen, you're like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive to come down all the way down here. And I very much appreciate you doing it. So thank you for that.
I was happy to do it.
Got you out of the house for a little bit. We know. All right. Well, that's it. Do you have anything else you want to add? And I'll close up the show.
Central Florida Freethought Community can be found at cflfreethought.org and on Facebook and Twitter. And that's it. I'm done.
All right. Well, if you want to hang on, I'll wrap it up in a minute or two here. If not, you're welcome to drop off. But I'll wrap up the show here and just remind everyone that we are available on YouTube and Facebook video. You can find this now on most podcast players. Search for your the show in your favorite app, and you can find the subscribe links at our website. Speaking of our website, before we go, I do want to introduce to you a fundraiser that we just kicked off today that we're pretty excited about. So some of us directors got together and we filmed a couple of promotional videos featuring this upcoming fundraiser. And so I'm going to play for you the trailer so that hopefully you'll get excited and go to our website and check it out. Here we go. flamingos are coming. Head over to polkatheists.org if you want to learn more about that and learn more about the atheist community of Polk County and all the things we're doing. Like most, we are shut down very much for our in-person events, but we're hoping to get some of that community service stuff up and going again very soon. So you can check it out, make a donation, polkatheists.org. Follow us at Polk Atheists on all the social media. And again, my thanks to Joseph Richardson for chatting with me tonight and for being a wonderful mentor and driving all those miles. We'll have to get you a gas card, buddy. And of course, always remember the 3 most important things. Don't touch anything, wash your hands, and wear your mask. We'll see you next time on Freethought in Florida.